Example 1 of the exponential functions lab. This is part 2. In part 1 we found transformations from f of x equals 5 to the x to f of x equals 5 to the negative x plus 25. We found that there was a reflection across the y-axis, that there was no horizontal shift, and that we had a vertical shift of plus 25. And then we graphed it. For part 2, we want to find some key information about f of x. We want to find its domain, its range, whether it's decreasing or increasing, if it has any x-intercepts, y-intercepts, and asymptotes. So, once we look at our graph, we see here in red y equals 5 to the x, which is our basic function that we transformed to this function in green here, which is y equals 5 to the negative x plus 25. So our domain is our x values. I'll get rid of this real quick. And we can see that for an exponential function, the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. It can be any x value. And that's including after it's been transformed. So our domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. For our range, we look at our y values, what it can possibly be. And we see that in our original non-transformed function, it has a range from 0 to infinity. And in our transformed function, because we shifted upwards 25 units, we now have, and because of that shift, we now have a range of 25 to infinity. We can see that after the original function was increasing from left to right, but because we did a reflection across the y-axis, the function after it's been transformed is now decreasing. It's going downwards. So our transform function is now decreasing. There are no x-intercepts in either function because there's a horizontal asymptote at 0 in our original one, and in our transformed one that asymptote has been moved upwards by 25. So there's now a horizontal asymptote at y equals 25 upwards here. There is a y-intercept, and we could solve for it algebraically, or we could look at it graphically, and we find that our y-intercept is at the point 0, 26. And so if we record all of that, we have our domain from negative infinity to positive infinity. That's all our x values. It can be any value. Our range, which is our y value, moved from 0 to infinity to 25 to infinity, because it moved upwards by 25. It is decreasing. It has no x-intercept. Its y-intercept was at the point 0, 26. And it has a horizontal asymptote at y equals 25.